Has anybody ever seen Lord of the Rings? Anything particularly interesting stick out when you think of it? If it's the CGI characters and the worlds it contains, you're probably not alone. For instance, think of the creature Gollum. In reality, it's a man in a motion capture suit acting out a character, but computers can help convince us that there's a wretched, ugly, horrible creature on screen trying to deceive our heroes. Much like my previous speech, in which I briefly covered CGI and its uses, I'll be delivering this speech on its creation, beginnings, evolution, and finally how we perceive it today. American cinema has always been landmarked by the technological advancements of our age. First, the kinetoscope, invented by the Edison Company in 1891, allowed people to view a moving picture one at a time. This is a kinetoscope. Today we can invent monsters or robots with the flick of a switch if we want to, and it's all due to the advancement of technology. First, how it all came to be. Film is a completely different entity at the turn of the century than we perceive it today. In 1891, most films were a minute at their longest, barely half a minute at their shortest. In most instances, films of this sort were shown at fairgrounds and music halls, or any place that a screen could be set up in a dark room. Unlike the films we know today, much of these included participation from the audience. Some even featured a lecturer who would speak during the film in order to give the audience some idea of the events taking place in the movie. It wasn't long after this mind-boggling creation was invented that it began to flourish. By the 1920s, countries like Russia and Scandinavia were expanding these films to include more story, making them longer. Movie studios were then created to create and manage more of these longer pictures, and in turn make a profit. It also helped that World War I was halting progress of film in Europe, letting America step in and take the reins. Not too long after this, color and sound were added to movies. In 1915, Technicolor was added to give more depth, but wasn't finalized until 1932. Sound was added using phonographic cylinder discs, then an optical variable density soundtrack to sync up with the film. These advancements gave birth to the golden age of Hollywood, as pictured here. Now that I've covered the history of film generally, on to the birth of CGI. It was invented roughly in the early 70s by Ed Catmull and Fred Park at Pixar Studios to make a three-dimensional hand drawing, as seen here. Later, 2D artist Peter Foltz created the first CGI short film, drawn on a tablet. He'd also made a 2D rendering of a moving cat on screen previously. In 1973, viewers were able to witness the first CGI view effect in the movie Westworld, to depict the vision of an android. CGI can also be used to recreate many people, places, and events. It was used to great effect in the 2001 film Pearl Harbor to recreate the epic 1941 air base assault. It was used in the 1994 film Forrest Gump to recreate deceased presidents like John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. A more recent breakthrough was in 2016 Star Wars Rogue One, in which the filmmakers were able to digitally insert a 3D model of actor Peter Cushing as an actor in the film, despite him being dead for many years. CGI can also create fully animated sequences, such as the credits sequence in Superman the movie, or the entirety of Toy Story, which became the first fully animated feature in history, as pictured here. The Matrix also includes CG effects that can bend physics and twist perception, like the bullet time effect or characters jumping to great heights off of rooftops. But much like how CG can be properly used, it can become grating as well. I will now discuss the downsides of CGI and how it affects modern films. For one, it can affect our sense of physics and seem too unrealistic. Entire worlds and characters are created with this tool, and while it's fun for a while, it takes away all traces of story or connectability with the audience, as seen here in a still from the animated film Avatar, in which the entirety of the film is made entirely with CG. How much fun would you have if everybody that you looked at around you were mythical creatures that you couldn't interact with? This is what actors deal with constantly in today's film world. Inflated budgets result from effects teams placing too much emphasis on CGI. It creates lazy filmmaking as well, giving us ungrounded characters and worlds we can't invest in. For example, this shot of the 2011 remake of The Thing, in which all CGI is used to create an unrealistic effect. A movie studio will put more effort into storyboarding a special effects scene than they would filming a real scene in a real location with a real actor. For example, in the 1998 film Godzilla, we spend so much time watching the 100-foot tall dinosaur wreaking havoc in the city, we forget why he's there in the first place. In conclusion, CGI is a tool that can be used in many different ways, and in a great way of making our dreams come true and pushing the envelope when it comes to realism, it's a really good tool to help us realize where we stand as a culture. but whether or not the films we're using it for is good remains up to us.